Welcome to Music Breakdown, Columbus, Ohio's own music analysis podcast. I'm your host, Travis Osterloh, and on today's podcast, we have a great episode where I get to interview Clay Melton out of Texas. And we have three segments today during this interview. The first segment, we get to talk a little bit about how Clay found music in their life and how they refine their craft as a musician and their current struggles as a professional musician, whether it's songwriting, performance, practicing, staying up, all that in the first segment. And then in segment two, we actually break down three of Clay's songs and we talk about the little bits that really add value, the creative inspirations and the gold nuggets throughout every song. That way you get to learn them and use them in your playing, whether you're jamming with people, writing your own songs, or creating your own solos. So we're here to find those pieces of gold so you can take those home today. And in segment three, my guitar students get their questions answered by professional musicians. So they get to learn a little about what it's like to be in the early stages and ask whatever kind of questions they have for somebody who's in the industry, who is performing live, who's touring, who's making a lot of fans and doing what they hope to be one day. So I'm so excited to share this interview with you. It went great. And speaking of, this podcast is sponsored by Osterloh Guitar Academy. So have you ever struggled learning guitar? Are you not making the guitar gains that you were hoping for? Do you have a guitar stuck in your room collecting dust and you're too afraid to pick it up because you're not quite sure where you want to go? Or maybe have you been playing for like 5 or 10 years and you're just not making the serious gains that you're looking for because you're learning a song here and there and whatnot, but it's really not making you better and you want a challenge to sink your teeth into. So if you're any of those things, if you relate to any of those things, go to osterlohguitaracademy.com and send me a form and we'll talk about making you a better musician today. So I hope you enjoy this interview. Now let's get into it. Hey, and we're here with Clay Melton on the podcast. Nice to have you here, Clay.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. We get to do one of my favorite things, talk about music and answer some questions. So we ready for it?
Let's do it.
All right, man. So who is Clay? Give us a little bit of description of about yourself, where you're from, what you got going on.
Sure. Right now I live in Houston, Texas. I was born in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and then raised over here in Houston. And, when it comes to music, I come from playing a lot of blues clubs in Houston. I started playing out here when I was like 13 and, cut my teeth like most guitarists, I feel, growing up over here, playing block parties and playing garage parties and crawfish boils and stuff like that. And, it's since I started doing that as a kid, all the way through school, there's nothing I wanted to do more than go home, play guitar, or go jam with my friends and stuff, And so the band that I have now is iteration of just all the music I'd been working on around 2015 is when we started putting this project together and started hitting the road in 2017. And now we have a new live album out and we've been touring the States and plan to hit it a couple more times this year. It's all blues rock and guitar centered. I tried a lot of different styles growing up musically, but what I've really wanted to just get back to over the last couple of years, and every time we get back around to the writing process and recording, is I really just want to capture, how the band sounds and feels when we just get in a room and start playing,
Oh, absolutely, man. I feel you there. So since it's an amalgamation of the stuff that you put together, what was your influences for that?
For this latest release, I'm obviously the core influences are always there, and those are the ones that people, that after shows, we have a lot of conversations about influences, and it's always interesting to hear what other people and fans hear, hearing saw us for the first time or something like that. But my core influences really started with Jimi Hendrix when I heard All Along the Watchtower in my dad's guitar car when I was like 11. I was just like really mesmerized by that solo, and I was like, man, I want to make that sound, and that really just started the infatuation. And found out about Stevie Ray Vaughan around the same time, and
Mhm.
I really just went back through their influences, who I would hear them talk about or songs I'd hear them cover, and so
Mhm.
that's how I kind of got started down the blues rabbit hole and getting into everybody. And Buddy Guy is one of my favorite blues guitarists that's still touring. All the Kings and
Mhm.
all that music was I was listening to so much of it growing up. And so when it comes to like current writing, there's different styles I've dipped my toes into, and I went to community college for like a year and a half and just took all
Mhm.
the jazz courses I could. They had a great program there, and
Nice.
then peaced out.
You're like, I got what I wanted. Now let me get the
Yeah,
heck out of
yeah.
here.
I still don't see anything I want to do more than this. So,
Oh, exactly.
um, yeah, I figured student debt wouldn't help the cause. But
Mhm.
so I mean, I would say the kind of predominant influences on this record was wanting it to be written in a live setting,
Mhm.
and that's really how it happened. Is kind of in this room behind me. This is my living room, and
Mhm.
we'll come out here and just shut it out, with the intention that we knew we were going to record it live. And I'd
Mhm.
say over the last year or since the pandemic, I really got back into a lot of New Orleans music, a lot of
Mhm.
Louisiana artists, New Orleans funk and brass bands and stuff like that. Even though everything we're presenting is a trio,
Yeah.
um, I was really influenced over the last 2 years by the Meters, the Neville Brothers. The Neville Brothers
Mhm.
live at Tipitina's is a favorite live album of mine. That kind of, I guess, really like sums up some of the influences that went into some of the tracks on this album. Runner is, I think, one of the songs where that really shows through in the rhythms and thing.
I think it's neat that you also went and took a dive into your favorite musicians' influence as well, who they learned after, who they got their tones from, and being able to take that and expand upon that, or at least see what they did with it and
Yeah,
in their own kind of way as well. I think that's always a cherry on the top for sure.
definitely.
So, going on the same lines, what was your first album? And you cannot lie because I got a doozy of a one.
The first album that I ever went out of my way to get.
No, the first
Um,
album you ever had. Like this is
okay,
some embarrassing
those are
stuff.
different questions.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, the first time I had like music, an option to pick what I wanted to listen to, or that I just ended up with music in my hands,
Hmm.
was my dad's old cassette collection, from the
Nice.
80s. And I still have the suitcase around here somewhere. It's a big black briefcase,
Hmm.
with the trays on both sides. And there were probably like 60 cassettes in there.
Hmm.
And that ranged from, 80s, like all kind of 80s rock and classic rock, Boston,
Hmm.
Asia, and then Journey. But there was also a lot of country,
Hmm.
like Texas country, like some of the first George Strait cassettes and records, and just kind of a mix. I think is what he had when he was in maybe college or something.
I got
Um, and so I did go back to the George Strait cassettes a lot when I was a kid. I guess I
you.
liked it.
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, it was kind of a big big pot of like, I didn't know what it was. I was just like, I like this. I'm gonna put it in the player.
Oh, I got you. And it was just trial by fire, right? Like
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you like best, and then you keep going back to what you really like until you burn it out.
yeah. There's Elton John and Queen in there, the Eagles.
Hmm.
So I was listening to classic rock pretty early on.
No, that's good, man. That's good. So mine was the
Yeah.
Baja Man.
Oh,
The goofy
nice.
shit, you know? But
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I had to have like a serious conversation and I didn't want them to laugh at me, it was this Human Clay by Creed. That was like
All right.
the first like CD
That.
album that I played religiously back when you had the CD players with the goofy little headsets and whatnot. I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure I wore that around the house 8, 10 hours a day.
I know we had that album in our house, or that CD. Um, well, I got one to match then, because my first
Hmm.
concert that I was attended was Rascal Flatts. The
Nice.
first concert that I wanted to go to was Eric Clapton. and that was an awesome show. He had Derek Trucks and Dole Bramall the second with him. Uh, but so that's my Baja man, I guess.
All right, I feel that. Well, thanks for being honest, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, how did your early experiences with learning guitar go? And what I mean by that, like, what kind of struggles that you encountered that left you frustrated? Stuff that you wish you would have learned sooner. Um,
Mm,
Maybe like what was tough in the beginning, but it was easier the more that you just worked with it.
yeah. That's a good question. Well, the way I started first, I told you when I was like 10 or 11, I heard Along the Watchtower and really liked it. And that Christmas, um, before something, I'd gotten this Toys R Us electric guitar,
Mm-hmm.
real small, and it had like where the pickups usually are, it had a speaker.
Nice.
And it was
Hmm.
like double A batteries, and had a
Yeah.
knob for the volume. And it was cool because it was just distorted when you turn it on, like right away.
It
So
just
it was
made
just
noise, and you're like, I'm happy.
yeah. Yeah, no, it totally missed. It was missing the string, was not in tune. But I would just I ended up going to Best Buy and getting finding an album. I think it was a compilation with All Along the Watchtower on it.
Mm,
It wasn't Electric Ladyland, but and then just playing that in my room all the time and finding that guitar, and I would just note out solos on like just the G string, which was tuned to who knows what.
exactly.
Um, and I did that for like a solid like 6 to 8 months, and then I got when I turned I think 11. Yeah, that's what it was. I got like a Stratocaster copy for my birthday.
Nice.
Cheap little Stag, and so I played with that just all the time once I got it. I took about a year and a half lessons, and I, I'm not the academic type.
Hmm.
I
It's
it's not that
understandable.
he was a great teacher, and I did learn like fundamentals that every guitarist should start to know. Just how to hold the instrument and fret properly and all that stuff. But I did that for a little while, and then there was a break where I was just playing a lot in my bedroom, and ended up meeting my who's now still one of my best friends in the world, Kyle Tomchess, and we're in like fifth or sixth grade, and
Hmm.
he had just picked up the drums, and he now tour manages for us, and just got off the road with us as well. And then he has his own project that I play in and stuff, and so we've just been
Nice.
playing together since day one. I used to drive over to his house, not drive, ride on my bike
Hmm.
with like guitar strapped to my back and then like a
Yeah.
little shitty amp like balanced on the bars,
Hmm. Yeah.
and just wobble over there. And we would jam in the garage until we had to shut up. And
Hmm.
so that's kind of like it. All my early playing was just trying to do whatever I was hearing, whatever I was into. Um, and then I think the struggles that were early on was really that I'm thankful because I started playing early was learning how to play with other players, you
Hmm.
know, um, which is tough to do when you can barely hold on to your own instrument and
Hmm.
carry your own weight. But for
Exactly.
me, those two journeys happened at the same time.
Hmm.
My friend Kyle was learning his drums the same time. He was missing fills the same times I was missing fills,
Hmm.
and we did it together. And I think that's why I've always loved the creation process and doing it together with other people.
Oh, for sure.
Um, but I think if I would have learned something sooner, it might have been a little bit more theory, but also at the
Hmm.
same time, the way I feel about theory and rules in music is that they are meant to be broken.
Hmm.
Um, just because you can get caught up in conversations with very, very intelligent musicians, but I just still like the idea of anything goes as long as it feels right.
Hmm. And I try to tell my students in a way with theory that it's just a means to communicate.
Exactly.
How else am I gonna express to you what's going on in this if you can't
Hmm.
understand what I'm telling you? In the same way that my very beginner students might hate the fact that it's finding notes on the fretboard. I'm like, well, when I ask you to start on a certain note, whether it be on the sixth string, the fifth, the second, the third, whatever, you need to be able to find it. How else are
Yep.
we gonna be on the same wavelength? Are you just gonna guess?
Yeah, and it being a means of communication means that you can communicate more efficiently and then spend more time playing. You know,
Mhm.
you have to talk about it less actually when you can speak about it, you know, in a way that there's that open channel communication. I totally agree.
Yeah, and it's really cool that you guys got to just playing early and that you guys got to come up together too and make the same mistakes because
Hmm.
I remember I played by myself in my room for a long,
Yeah.
long time and I didn't have anybody that was going through the same stuff I was. And
Hmm.
immediately when I saw somebody better, I just was like shut down like, woof, I'm no good. I'm crap. Like how did he get so good? How is he so much better? I should just quit. But I mean, it's a stubborn thing. You got to love it in order to get good at it because you'll get torn down easy in that regard.
Oh yeah. You can go find someone make you feel bad about your playing real quick anytime.
Oh yeah.
But I think you know what part of that is because I remember feeling the same way right when I started actually going out to clubs and seeing other players. And I was like, man, I'm much farther than or farther away from where I want to be than I thought I
Mhm.
was.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's the live experience being the best teacher and playing with other people. Just
Mhm.
there's nothing like, you know, getting in the game as opposed to practice. You know.
Yeah, well, it's reality. It's like improvisation. It's everything you
Hmm.
know in a moment's notice, and you have to act and perform now. There's no waiting.
Exactly.
There's no thinking about it. There's no planning it out. There's no plotting it out. It's what can you do with what you got right now. And
Exactly.
if you can't, you're gonna struggle just a little bit. So
Yeah. Hard
I
lessons are
gotta,
good.
yeah, I got a controversial question for you. Is
Okay.
guitar tone in your hands or in the equipment?
Uh, I would say it's. I mean, it's in your hands,
Mhm.
but equipment's always going to whatever your signal chain is always going to bring out different characteristics of the
Mhm.
way you play. You know,
Yeah.
you know, it's almost like asking is the sound of a player, is it their kind of individual characteristics or the little nuances that make them unique in the way they play, or is it the gear they play through? You know,
Mhm.
I'll pretty much every time say it's the way they play.
Yeah. It's the nuances, it's the phrasing, it's the note choice,
Hmm.
it's what they go to, it's how they feel completely different than anybody else. And that's what I think is
Yeah.
awesome about this instrument is that you have your own style and it's going to sound completely catered to you. I can go up into the keyboard and I can play a C major chord on the keyboard and it's going to sound relatively the same to the guy next to me doing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is. There's a lot that comes through in the way you use both your hands. That's just it's a different world dynamically.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, man. Awesome. Um, I guess you answered this already, but we'll go into it a little bit deeper. You mentioned that it was easy because you had people around you that wanted to play and grow with you from an early age. Um, how did you keep those relationships going to where you kept playing together, or how did you bring other people around you to start, I guess, in a way, have have a community or a group of people that you played with? I mean, you had yourself, your friend that you started with that was on the drums, and then the drummer that you play with now as like core people. How did
Hmm.
you bring more people around you that you got to play with? A great example, like I didn't have anybody to play with,
Hmm.
and I ran into a guy who started hosting open mics at a local bar. So every month I would go and play, no matter good, bad, and different, every month. And there was always
Yep.
somebody new there, and I always got to meet somebody new. And then we'd go hang out their house, jam over there, listen to what they like, and then just start building this small community of musicians that I got to know.
I mean, I think that's exactly it. Is I always tell players, you know, when they're saying, you know, how do I find opportunities or find bandmates or get experience? I say, go to your local open mics.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I think, you know, if it's a healthy environment, then it's a great way to just get the lay of the land and see how this thing works and see if, you know, if that's the right community for you. You know, finding community is I feel is a very big challenge for so many great players.
Mm-hmm.
because there's no roadmap to do it. And I was very lucky. I told you that me and my buddy would play crawfish bowls, and we would
Mm-hmm.
started going to open mics and stuff like that. And then around like 15, 16, I was at an open mic, and Houston has a blues society
Mm-hmm.
that obviously hosts jams and stuff, and they also do a great job. They take care of veteran blues players, and that are no longer touring and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, and that have contributed a lot. And so they're a great foundation. But I was at one of their blues jams, and I met someone named Carlos Johnson. He went by Congos by Carlos,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just the coolest cat. He would play Easy Rider every time, and I
Yeah.
mean he sold it. And he was a percussion player, and so he decided to invite me up with him that night, and then started inviting me out more and more. And
Mm-hmm.
every time I went out, especially being a little kid at that point compared to
Yeah.
like most of the cats at blues jams in Houston. I would go out some nights before I met him and just never get up, even get on the list, because there's some real bluesmen out there in Houston. And so he gave me a chance and brought me on stage and taught me a lot of things that
Mm-hmm.
I think are foundational lessons. And I wouldn't have learned that if I hadn't started just trying to go find where I could fit in.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, you kind of will take any opportunity you can get. And I say kind of that mentality is very healthy for musicians trying to find their way. Every step of the process, wherever you're at, just chase the opportunity, because there's no right way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you don't do it now, somebody's going to do it, right?
Well, it's a lot of trial by fire, is what I'm reading in your
100%.
story. Like not being afraid to fail, because you
Mm-hmm.
are going to fail, and you're going to fail often, and you're going to fail a lot. But what we don't see from the beginning is how often did they fail? What did they struggle with? Because we're all human. Nobody
Oh
just
yeah.
was that good. Like it took time, effort, practice, diligence, like a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is not talked about enough, especially for beginner musicians, especially the ones that I teach.
Yeah, just sticking to the fun. And he taught Carlos Johnson taught me things like, keep your eyes open when you're jamming on the stage with other people, and know when to shut up, when to stop playing,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And he would turn around and say, he'd get on you.
Oh yeah.
And those are valuable lessons, and it's just sticking to the fundamentals. If you're trying to find a band or try to find musicians, go out there to where the music's happening. If you're a band already and you want to try and build, do the fundamentals of, social media really, I think, blurs the waters for a lot of musicians on what the best practices are. And that's always going to be there, and it's going to be changing. But I think the fundamentals of being a working band hasn't changed, and they
Mm-hmm.
still, are, I think, really support the growth of a band. Just go out there and play shows,
Yeah.
go meet people at shows, and get out there and play.
Yeah. Go and figure it out. So
Yeah.
how did your practices look in the beginning stages? Because I played with Dad Rockman, and if I
Hmm.
didn't tell him, here's the set list, here's what we're playing, boom, 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 it seemed like all we did was just mess around.
Yeah, yeah, I've been in
Mm-hmm.
every instance in between, right? But it's interesting. So, I mean, but you recognize that you had to be the person to say, "All right, here's what we're doing," and that's often what it is. Just somebody has to take charge, and that's musicians are out here perpetuating the stereotypes sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and it can. I've been in very non-productive sessions when we were younger and stuff like that. But I think that our early practices have always done the three-piece thing, or it
Mm-hmm.
was just me and one other buddy. And so, before we were like trying to be a band doing shows, it was just jamming until one of us stopped,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I think that that's an important distinction between trying to play one song. Um, Maybe one person doesn't know it as well as the other. Me and Kyle would just start making noise, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure a lot of it wasn't great, most of it likely. But we would just continue to figure it out. And so whenever I had serious, or what I considered serious bands up to that point, um, everybody wanted to do it, and I was lucky to play with some older players. Wes Arvin, he was 10 years my senior that time, so he's in his mid 20s, and had been, he's a fantastic guitarist. And so I knew he wasn't wasting his time or fucking around, so I
Mhm.
kind of had the inclination to want to make it worth his time, as
Oh, for
well.
sure. And having great mentorship probably filled a ton of gaps just from not having the lessons or the structure and the teaching.
Oh, it's invaluable.
Mhm. Mentorship is, you don't know what you don't know. And I like to say that to my students too. And until
Yeah.
somebody who's on the other side of the tracks is telling you don't walk across the trains coming, hey, or hey,
Yep.
this is exactly how you do this, so you don't have to spend 6 months figuring this out. Like that is the biggest help that you can have, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
you
And
wouldn't necessarily know it without getting to it.
yeah, don't be prideful. Ask for that help.
Yeah, exactly. So y'all listening to this, ask for, how do I do this? What am I doing wrong? Don't be afraid. All right. So what kind of influences your songwriting now? Or I mean, we've talked about influences, but how do you, I guess, how do you approach your songwriting is a better question.
From just a kind of looking at the process, very simply, most songs start with either a melody in my head, guitar if I think about, or I'm playing my guitar and one of the two start happening, and then I start chasing an idea. And my, I think a big part of my practice is chasing just about every idea.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't love it the next day, then it's probably not worth continuing to chase. But at least I tried. Just thinking that anything could be a song. But with this latest record, you know, I think like I mentioned before, I really wanted to create something sonically recorded that sounds and feels like what it's like when you come to any kind of show or
Mm-hmm.
whenever you're sitting in the room and we're jamming. Because we're not that complicated sonically. We're a true three piece with no tracks or anything like that. All three of us sing now, but um, it's really about, I think, capturing the essence of how each individual player in the band plays. Zach Grindle on drums, like hits the skins harder than anybody I know,
Mm-hmm.
and I love him for it. It's just a very strong style. And then Zach Cox on bass is he comes from heavier music as well, like we were talking about
Mm-hmm.
earlier,
Yes.
and I like the way he plays bass. It's kind of aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm not doing anything new, but it ain't broke. It's a Stratocaster into a Fender amp,
Mm-hmm.
but it's pushed and it's loud. And so really it's when I was thinking about arrangements, I didn't chase too much of a produced arrangement, as in adding things that we wouldn't be pulling off live.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to keep it pretty true and honest to what happens in the room.
No, I get it. And if you're already building your songs with the performance in mind, can put on a way better show.
That's interesting. It's interesting that you say that. Just having got off our last tour and watching to the bands after us, the Bluestones and Desrocks,
Mm-hmm.
their crowd participation was great, but it wasn't because they were going out of their way to do anything cheesy. Not cheesy, but
Yeah.
anything like too obvious about crowd participation.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way that their rhythms worked in their songs got people moving whenever it made sense for everybody to be going wild. Um,
Definitely.
yeah, and I don't know if I had too much intention of the listener like that, as opposed to will this make the listener feel like they're sitting there,
Mm-hmm.
watching a live band rather than hearing something that's not in the stage in their mind.
Oh, like they're just trailing off, right?
Yeah, or
Oh,
just like some synth comes out of nowhere.
mm-hmm.
But a couple seconds ago, I thought I was listening to just a three piece.
Mm-hmm. And then getting
It's
distracted
not.
by it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to keep it authentic to what we're doing in a room.
Exactly. And that's your true sound. You're not dependent on anything else in that regard.
Hmm.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So the second question into that regard, how has your composition changed over time? has it like have you streamlined any processes? Did you find new ways to cultivate ideas? Um, any bit of that. Like, do you draw it all out? Do you track your stuff in a way so that way when you come back to it a week later because you got other things going on, you're like, hey, I have this idea and let me expand upon that. Or hey, how did that sound? Like, let me pull up this video that I have of me playing it, even though it's
Yeah.
half speed, whatever. Take that idea and then roll with it again, or pick and choose a bunch of licks that you wrote over the course of time and be like, let me use this and this and this one and put it in the solo for such and such song.
Nice. Those are some cool process ideas right there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of what I love about songwriting is I feel there's no right way to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of just the way my attention works. It's to the song's benefit and my own enjoyment, to change things up, and not intentionally. I don't know if I sit down like trying to practice doing something entirely different every time that process starts.
Mm-hmm.
But back when first started writing with bands, it'd be, you know, hey, do you remember the new song that we played last week? It goes like this, remember? And there'd be sections that I doesn't quite remember how we did it, but we'd played until it ended up getting recorded if it ever did.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started messing with DAWs pretty young. As soon as I had my hands on a laptop, it was stuff like Reaper,
Yep.
and free softwares, and so exploring that changed my songwriting process to where whenever I realized I could multi-track, I was like, well, I'm going to put just every idea I have on the wall. And then about like in 2017, by then my process was demoing things in Logic, and kind of because we could only spend so much money to have so much time in the studio when we would go to record. I wanted to have everything very pretty much. We would record the album in our rehearsal space,
Mm-hmm.
to figure out how we really wanted it to end up in the end final product, and then
Mm-hmm.
go and re-record everything else just with a different process and a better studio. And like I said before, nowadays it's really just thinking about the song and how we want to come across live, and when we're doing it all together.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of arranging in room. For this last record, all the songs I would bring with the probably a verse, a chorus, or a riff, and then
Mm-hmm.
we would go to arranging section to section, and sometimes just jam out the idea with the even when it's in its simplest form, and just see where it takes us.
No, it's understood. I mean, these are a lot of different concepts, as broad stroked as it is, of like a little bit
Mhm.
here, a little bit here, a little bit here, but it all comes back to the feel and then listening back to how it sounds. I, I feel like I would personally struggle with improvising in the room to find something because I
Mhm.
wouldn't have been able to hear it like amid playing it.
Yeah.
So unless I had one of those like tape recorders, like set that in the corner of the room and just hit record and then we just work something out and then listen back to that would be the only way I'd be able to really iron that out in my head.
I agree with you. Sometimes the improv can become a circle because you're just trying to hold on to whatever you have, but listening back is invaluable for that reason. But also at the same time, I love it because whenever we're beginning to improv over an idea that maybe I've been chucking around for a week, and
Mm-hmm.
either hit a dead end or just don't isn't I'm not inclined to take it anywhere else. And the way either Grindor or Zach will play a
Mm-hmm.
certain part, all of a sudden right away, it's that instinct like you were talking about before, like how live it's that split second decision. We'll take the tune in a completely different direction. It's because the way they played something, it makes you think of something you might not have thought of otherwise.
Mm-hmm. So you would definitely say that your composition is highly influenced by your other band members as well.
Oh, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we arranged the whole record together in this room.
Mm-hmm. Cool, man. Cool. It's awesome where you get to take a little bit of a step back as the guitarist and the vocalist and kind of
Mhm.
let the other members of the group shine and kind of ride what they're grooving with too.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the day when we have a keyboard player, and then I can really take that step back
Yeah.
for maybe a whole section. But no, I see what you mean, and I agree with you because it's stepping outside the school thought of the performer, and then being able to listen critically as just as somebody that's working on this arrangement in a team. You know.
Cool, man. So this might be a loaded question, and
Okay.
maybe we're gonna just hear repeat answers, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. How do you create great live music?
You got to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest. I mean, whenever I see any performance, anywhere, I might not even be my style that I'm usually into or something. Um, but when a performer is just in what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's that part of music that's universal where you don't have to speak the same language as the performer to really like just feel a connection in the room. And I think there's a lot of different reasons and ways that great performers deliver great live music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think for us, it's about doing it together as a
Mm-hmm.
three piece because there's really I mean, everybody's such an important supportive role in a small format band like that,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that keeps it as real as it gets for us.
No, that's good, man. I don't know the answer. I'm gonna be
No,
honest.
yeah, that's all I
So
got.
that's why I ask it, you know? So maybe I
Yeah,
can
that's a good
maybe I
that's a
can
good
learn
question,
from it.
man.
Cool. All right. So what is your mindset as a professional musician? Like what is important to you
Okay,
to live,
that's a great
breathe,
question too.
and like live, breathe, perform it, and be it?
Well, I mean, just music's sacred. Um, with all like when we're touring on this past tour, so it's a lot of hurry up and wait, right? And there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of downtime, and luckily, if you're lucky, you get to do it with friends and have a great time. But when it comes to talking about or planning or performing the music, I mean, that's what you've worked as long as you've worked
Mm-hmm.
to be able to do. And so like I said, it's sacred, and I think should be treated with respect in your mind, and that keeps it just very pure because I mean you don't want it's easy to let life and everything else that's going on get inside your you know
Mm-hmm.
musical mind. But I think that that's another great part of playing music and performing is that it can and should be an escape because there's no there's no rules when it comes to it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're being expressive.
Mm-hmm. That's understood. So your focus is on the experience, the music, and the art of the music in itself. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
and
collecting
as
from
far as
what you're saying.
being professional, like as a working musician,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just respect other people's time, and a person's word is very important. You know, it's like if you're living in a music city and you want to be a studio musician, if you miss one of those days or if you miss the call, you only get the call once or twice.
Yeah.
Just treat people with respect like anything.
No, that's understood, man. And being willing to step up and just get it done, right?
Say yes, figure it out later.
Yes, exactly. Even if it's bigger than what you could chew, for sure, man.
Yes, yes.
Awesome, dude. Awesome. All right. So, could you describe a live performance where you felt like anxiety was about to take over? Like, how did you find a way to overcome stage fright? So for me, it was just repetition of being on stage, and then there became a moment where I played these songs maybe about 20, 30 times that I started feeling good about. I know what I'm doing. I'm just excited to go up, and it no longer became stage fright. So like the voice was louder, the playing was cleaner, it was more fun to do. It became more a better performance once I crossed that stage fright threshold. How did you
Gotcha.
find how did you find yourself crossing that?
Over preparation, or at least in my mind, I would feel like I was over prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really never had like killing nerves when it came to performing because I really just liked it so much,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's also due to having grown up playing in very low pressure live situations at first for a long time. I mean, you fuck up at the block party or the crawfish boil, it's
That's no
just start
good.
playing more notes, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but to kind of like when it became, when I was a little bit older and in more serious efforts, it was trying to be as prepared as I felt like I could be, because
Mm-hmm.
that's when only time I would get nervous when we were doing a tune. I didn't feel like I'd, maybe
Mm-hmm.
was
Yeah.
ready, but also there's been situations where I was glad we did it because I wasn't ready, but that kind of got me across that chasm of being maybe nervous about that one specific tune is just
Mm-hmm.
jumping off into the deep end and seeing how it goes.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Thanks for answering. I have one more question for you before we move on to our next segment.
Cool.
When are we gonna hear more from you or see you next? And specifically, when you
Well,
come into
yeah,
Columbus, so I can see you and we can shake
yeah.
hands.
Columbus, right on. We're about to put out dates for our fall runs.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably going to get out to the East Coast again. We'll be in the South. Our next show is July 27th in LA at the Whiskey A Go Go, opening for Paul Gilbert, who's a
Nice.
guitar hero. Yeah,
Jealous. That'll be awesome,
it's
bro.
it's going to be a great time, and so we're really excited. And then in between that show in the fall, we're in writing season again. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get ahead of it before the winter, and I believe it's going to be kind of it's going to be an in studio album this time. So we're looking at new arrangements of some of the live tunes, and
Mm-hmm.
I have a bunch of songs I want to try out. So you'll be hearing something pretty soon.
All right, that's exciting, man. Can't wait to hear it. Can't wait to see you when you come around the Ohio area, for sure.
Yeah,
Cool. All right, for segment two, Clay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through a couple of your songs that I picked out, and we're just gonna take a listen through, and then we're gonna discuss bits and parts and pieces that I find creative, and then ask you a little bit more on how they were created, what your thoughts were, what they did to attribute to the song, what kind of creativity, and we just get to dissect them and have some fun. What do you think?
sounds great.
All right, let's do it. All right, so we're gonna start with Runner and your live performance, and this was out of where?
This was recorded in the Woodlands, Texas, at a venue called Dosey Do.
Dosey Do. Dope. It looks really cool, like it was inside a barn with those little hanging lights.
Yeah, yeah, it's a renowned room in Texas. It's actually like a 300-year-old barn that was moved down to Houston and reassembled to original spec, and they've done something crazy acoustically to it. And I mean, you don't really need a mic in there with an acoustic guitar to sound just beautiful, you know?
No, so it's got hella reverb.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Exactly.
Sweet. All right, well, we're gonna start it up. Here is Runner.
Got me where you want me. Guess I'm gonna have to stay. If you had it your way, I'd be coming home to stay. Baby, I'm a runner, looking for a place to hide. I'm not your number. Show you what I got inside. We can waste good time doing the wrong things. I could have chased the lines till that sun came. I could tell you now, but you know what I'm all about. tracing lines till that sun came. I could tell you now, but you know what I'm all about. Baby, I'm a runner, looking for a place to hide. I'm not your number, show me how to die right. Yeah, whoa. Good time doing the wrong things. I could have traced your lines till that sun came. I could tell you now, but you know what I'm all about. Yeah, you know what I'm all about. Baby, I'm a runner, looking for a place to hide. I'm not your number, show you how to die right here.
All right. So the first thing that drew me in, Clay, is that little groove right in the beginning.
Yeah.
And the way that every time you played it, it had a little bit different vibe to it. So you had that da-da, and that walking bass line down, or the root note down the second time through, and just having those different variations. So that way it was interesting every time that you heard it. It wasn't like, all right, it's the Menards jingle.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's less intentional and mostly just a result of like how Zach went about playing the drums in that particular song.
So you would say the groove itself was just following along the foundation of the drums originally?
Exactly.
He was playing.
Well,
Gotcha.
yeah, I remember I brought that song, and it's kind of because of the way the riff works. It was kind of, I wasn't able to play it well, just acoustic and sing it, but I had the idea, and then once Zach started playing what he began playing with that song, it kind of all solidified. But we still play it different every single night. It feels like,
So does it feel almost improvised every time you play it then?
To a degree, yeah.
That's neat though. That way every show is a little bit different.
Yeah, it was funny listening to that version after playing the song every night for a month, because we changed so many things,
You're like, that's that one snapshot in time where.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I think about recordings. Exactly.
So that makes me question though too. So when it's out there and it's put out like that, and then you played it a better way, and you're like, shoot, this would have been,
it happens
better
all the time
on the album. So that's par for the course. It's like a snapshot of this is where we were at this point in time. And now,
yeah, because it happens. It happens with the in studio songs as well. You continue to play them live, and they continue to grow, and then like, oh man, if only we would have written that at the time of the record. But that's what's great about songs. They if they have good legs and it's a good foundational song, and you want to continue to play it, then they're always going to grow and change.
They're going to evolve. So that's probably the best thing, and it's going to keep bringing people back, which is what you want, right?
That's right.
All right. So how did you find a good mix of vocals and guitar with this? I struggled with balance because all I wanted to do was play, but whenever I'd go to sing, I would either one trip over myself or
Mhm.
two, one would overtake the other.
Yeah, I've tried to I mean, being growing up guitarist first, and
Mhm.
I always was trying to sing, and I was writing songs from an early age, but I just know it's so important. And with this song in particular, the vocals really happened at the same time as the writing of the guitar and the rest of the arrangement.
Mhm.
It all just kind of, this one came together quickly, but the arrangement didn't happen quickly. We really searched for, that the whole bridge and everything kind of goes somewhere else. So, but all the vocals, it's not very complex.
Mhm.
I guess verse style or anything like that. It's kind of bluesy in that way, where it's like those two sections and then the hook.
Mhm. And hey, it's a great song, simple or not. I'm not gonna deny
Thank
that.
you.
It
I
seems
appreciate it.
like the rhythm and especially the in between marks definitely
Mhm.
stands out to me consistently, and it's very staccato. So
Yeah.
when you were pointing out that the drums basically wrote the foundation for it, I could definitely hear it.
Hmm.
That was something that I noted here, is that the theme was evolving over the course of the song in itself, not just
Yeah.
every time you played it, it was the same. It was a different version of it.
And that's very much like I said. I mean, with this song especially, is due to how Zach Grinnell plays the drums. Is he's I love the way he thinks about a drum arrangement in a song and writing for pop or rock, um, because he is thinking about progression like that in subtle ways. And in this one, it's not a whole lot of subtle things on this song, and that's, I like that we got to dig into that.
Yeah. So, what did you? How do you feel about dynamics with this song? It's more of like a volume push up and down, like back and forth. Like
Hmm.
you choose to pull back so that way, when the more important part comes, it has a bigger effect on it. Like before your solo, when you were walking that bass groove and you were playing the
Hmm.
similar tracks, being in sync, writing it out together. As I shake my camera and mic, as you're
Yeah.
feeling that and you're pulling it down, you're pulling your ear away from what you're hearing. So when the solo comes in, it's got a bigger and a more innate punch, and it kind of hits you right in the mouth.
Yeah, I mean, I think dynamics as far as, like, you're talking about with the drums, how it's progressing through the song. I didn't want to, after we had done that riff, the next time we did it, it's kind of that section after the first chorus before the second verse. We could have stayed kind of up and rocking there, and
Mhm.
we did do that for a while. I was like, I want to pull it back down and just let that live, at a lower dynamic how it already has been. Because I feel as a song, I don't think this is why I made the decision, but sometimes it crosses my mind as a songwriter to not be so sporadic,
Mhm.
and what I call like a song that's kind of ambitious, or it has a journey to it,
Yeah.
where it's really like five songs put together that need to be separate songs, um,
Yeah.
right? So like
That's
I think
understandable.
my thought was to not go there and just hold on to what feels good already.
Mhm. It definitely feels like, for the term runner, that the song is always moving, like it's walking you around.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what was really evident within that walking bass line, even in even in your chorus parts too. Like when you were hitting the power chords and you're walking it up,
Yeah.
like that was clearly evident for me, that it just felt like it was continuously moving as we went through the song.
Hmm.
So with your solo being at, yeah, we just talked about the groove part. um how did you compose your solo? Was that all improvised? Did you just rip ideas that you learned from the musicians that you liked? um was there any like focus lines? So like, I like this piece and I'm gonna keep doing this, but it's gonna be variant. Like I like, so
Yeah.
like playing a double stop like right at the start,
Mm.
and it was something that you return to, and it's something that you like, and it's very bluesy, and I love that sound in a way. And when you made it vibrato,
Yeah.
it sounds awesome.
Cool.
So,
Thanks, man.
or it was all of it improvised when you put it together? How do you
You
go
know,
about it?
I remember when we were writing that song, when we would get to that section in the rehearsal room, I was starting different every single time because I felt like I hadn't landed on how I wanted to come in. And, what has kind of stuck around in that solo, and I had kind of found a groove that I was sticking closer to, is just the very intro after the halftime shuffle. When it busts into the solo section, is just kind of that minor third interval, the dee da do, and then going down to that like the major third. Um, that kind of those first couple phrases, although I usually play them a little different, even through this last tour, has been like I just kind of like the moment it creates right at the beginning, and then the second half of the solo is almost still always different.
Mhm.
Um, and even the way that the rhythm section plays, that the second half always is a little different as well. So we really treat it as it's an open jam for only so many bars.
Exactly. So I want to pull it up again and just look at it. What I really liked about it, before we go and dissect it and talk about the sections, you moved across the fretboard. So I like to call the sections of the fretboard registers, because
Yeah.
each one gives you a little bit of different vibe to it. And by doing that, it gives you motion and momentum and makes every little lick sound different and interesting by just
Hmm.
moving the location that you go. Um, Especially early on, I imagine your solos were a lot like mine. They're very stationary, very boxed,
Yeah.
maybe a couple phrased elements, and maybe you just repeated the crap out of it because you're like, I don't know what else to do. But
Yeah.
something that is mobile, fun, has a bit of aggressive, and has you hanging is very nice. So let me open this back up. Cool. I believe that's 312. We'll just start it from here. Oh man, that's the end.
Yeah.
My bad. So that part there, what are you doing to make that sound? That is not necessarily my kind of tone, but I think it's so interesting to hear.
I I personally wouldn't have recorded that tone like that a second time. Um, but it's a weird second position because I have a Seymour Duncan pearly gates in the bridge of my strap.
Mm-hmm.
So it had the humbucker on, but it was in second position, so with the single coil middle. And then the drive that's kind of making it like that I have right here is the I don't know if the camera can see me or not, but it's an Ultraphonics by Vertex. Um, and it's HRM. It's harmonic. Like I forget how they say it, but anyways, it's basically a drive, and it's got this ratio that brings out different harmonics. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's a little bit of that and a little bit of a detuned strat.
All right, cool. Because I was trying to figure it out myself. I'm like, I've never made my guitar sound like that.
Yeah.
So that there, was that just a descent pentatonic run that you had? It looked like you jumped three different shapes.
Yeah, that's coming from that second box and doing, a lick that I go to a lot as far as going to that flat five kind of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just for a hair of a bend. And then yeah, going back to the first position and down the box before that.
Going home.
And yeah, going home, bro.
I feel it. All right. I love some excessive slides.
Yeah.
So like returning to the note, like playing the note and then sliding back up to it and continuously. I think it's got a cool little sound to it, but for the most part, most slides is just okay. Here's my target note to it.
Yeah.
Not
Moving
really
on.
making it interesting. Have you done like an over 12th fret slide where you just go all the way from the top all the way down?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Usually not intentionally. I've done it. That's more a moment to improv, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I was inclined to kind of do that on this solo because, like I was talking about the meters influence, and Leo Nocentelli will do great licks, with 2 or 3 notes, just like a lot of great bluesmen. But he'll really dig in on a theme for just just a very short amount of time, but in an effective way.
With a heavy rhythm influence.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. That's how I feel like most of your licks are here, are very rhythm influenced and very groovy. Then we're walking that same baseline theme at the end. So very cool solo. Thank you for sharing those little tidbits there.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Cool. So in this performance, it looked like you were doused in sweat across your forehead. So was that spotlight a little too hot?
No, I am, for having lived in Texas most of my life, I still sweat so much on stage every night. It's the way it goes.
No,
It was a hot room that night. It's cold outside actually for Texas. We recorded this in January of 2022.
Yeah. So is that recent? Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of that's a beautiful thing about recording a live album is, instead of spending however long you go about tracking, it's like, all right, it's tracked, just get a mix on it.
Yep. And then just it'll be out sooner rather than later. And it won't be this big, when's it coming? When's it coming?
It was just nice.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it was refreshing, and also being our first release since the pandemic and getting back into the swing of things, because we really put this out before we began touring again. And we were able to say, all right, the record's done. Now we have, plenty of time to build a great plan for this record without waiting really that long. We put it out 6 months after we recorded it, which doesn't seem to be the way for most studio records, unless you're running up against the clock. But it was kind of I'd say a reason I would do a live record again,
No, exactly.
One of the.
So cool. I got to give props to your drummer for going like almost full suit.
Yeah. He's going in. Yeah. Well, that's what we talk about all the time. All the drummer style is all from the waist up,
Yeah. So he's got shorts in the back.
Exactly. He's got to wear it all at the top.
It's understood.
It's very opposite. His attire for this current tour was cutoffs. So we've gone in a different direction.
He's like, we're recording that night. I gotta look good. Let's go. I hear it, man. I hear it. Cool. I gotta be honest. Your video looks like you're all just having a bunch of fun up on stage.
Yeah, we do have a lot of fun. It's all smiles the whole time.
Yeah. Was there extra pressure knowing that you guys were going in to record at this venue?
There was definitely pressure leading up to the gig. I was in the same boat of what I was talking about earlier, where I'm a over preparer. Yeah, there were a lot of elements that were still moving, day of show. And fun fact, I misplaced my in-ears pack right before the show started. And so we don't use tracks, but we do use a click in our in-ears. And so I went just 4 wedges, just old school for the whole record. And luckily the stage mix was great, and it was honestly like a lot of fun because of that. But It was a last minute decision.
Hey, and then that's more genuinely what you're playing with, your people. Like,
Yeah. I mean, it was
old school.
yeah. I felt right at home, you know.
Exactly. That's where all that experience just clicked in and ready to go, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm gonna bring up this next one.
Cool.
I picked Texas Cyclone. So
All right.
this looks like a straight instrumental from when I heard it first. And cool. So is this at your place or was this at a different venue? Because when I saw it, it doesn't look like the room that you're in right now.
Yeah, this is a whole story, man. So we had set aside some time to record with um the same guy that mixed live in Texas and that has worked on a lot of our past releases, Sebastian Cure, who we had worked with him when he lived in Austin, but he's originally from Colombia, and so he moved back down there. So we had rented out a week of studio time in Austin, and then somebody else in the studio had gotten COVID, and this was in 2021, or no, this was at the end of 2020, so things were just opening up. So anyways, we couldn't go in the studio, and we'd already driven up to Austin with all our gear.
Dang.
So that day of, I was like, well, maybe we can set up in our Airbnb and like just get some like pre-pro work done or something. Also, you know, I have a bunch of mics in my house, and I called the guy and the host of the Airbnb and asked him if we could do something there, and he was like, oh, actually, that's totally fine with me. That house used to be used to make records in the 70s all the time. It was like, sweet. They didn't really have any like close neighbors. It was totally random. We had just picked that Airbnb because it was close to the studio.
Nice.
And so I was like, all right, well, fuck, we'll go make a record in there. And I went out and we grabbed mics from friends. I brought, you know, the same interface that we use for our live interact. We recorded that on. And this video is actually was the take that everything was recorded in. So it's completely live, audio and video. And what's even more crazy is after we finished that project, Malcolm Harper, who we worked on and that recorded our video "Say That You Love Me," that's how I was going. And then I told him about this house and told him where it was and sent him pictures of the studio. And he was like, wow, that house is where I went in the 70s and recorded my first live record way back in the day. It's just completely random. And so we didn't know if we would use anything from this weekend, but we ended up putting this track on our EP Back to Blue.
Nice. And how much of a small world it is, for real. I say
so it always is. It's crazy.
It is, man. So let's get rolling into the song, dude. That's such a neat story. Cool. Where is my play? Cool. All right. My first question on this one is what started Texas Cyclone?
Oh man, it's kind of a wild story as well. The reason we even wrote a instrumental, and our main reason for going up to that recording week in the first place was the end of 2020. You know, obviously nothing had happened that year, and so we're like, all right, let's get in the studio, let's get some of these songs into works. But then I had to end up getting, about 2 months prior to that, a kind of an emergency tonsillectomy. Got both my tonsils removed.
Okay.
They
give you ice cream?
And I did get ice cream for sure, but it did not help.
Fallacy. This is a lie.
Yeah. No, but so right before, because I was a little worried about my voice, and I did a bunch of reading. I basically WebMD'd myself, and learned about how it's for when you're an adult and you get tonsillectomies, it can be a very long journey to get back to your full lung capacity and full range of your voice and stuff, and that tones will change. So I was basically planning on not being able to. I was supposed to do a full month of vocal rest after the surgery, and I was barely talking at the time that we went into that session, and I was gonna maybe do some scratch vocals, but not really sing. So I was like, well, while I can't even sing anyways, I just felt inclined to start an instrumental, because we'd never done one before. We for a long time, when we do longer sets, we would always have kind of like interlude jams, that sometimes would be wide open, or sometimes would be very nailed out like this one is. And so I'd kind of wanted for a while to do something in that style and actually put it on a record. So it's kind of how we went about it.
Oh, that's cool, man.
It's kind of out of necessity.
Yeah, it seemed a little odd that there was a complete instrumental when I was like, but he's a vocalist too. Like, where did this come from? And I'm like, there had to be a reason for this. Also, too, you mentioned that in Runner, the drums led the foundation for the song. Was there a different foundation for this one, or was there a specific section that you like, this is where it started, and then it built off of that?
I kind of had a couple sections of the beginning sections of the song. Kind of had it. I remember sitting in the room, and it was a period where it was just me and the drummer for a couple rehearsals when that came about. And I just remember being like, just wanted to hear that. He's like this, it was, just one of those. And then from section to section, we made decisions as a band. We was like, well, we're doing an instrumental, let's do a bass solo too, and so that section grew. And then I was like, well, I want to get back to the kind of what we consider the hook. And then the outro went through a lot of work in the studio section, actually. All the parts were they're the same notes and chord progressions, but I think it was really the drum sections throughout that changed a lot in that, the day we spent recording it.
I did make a mental note that, especially in that last section, that had a lot of different parts that carried over. That was very jam-esque. And
yeah
that out. No lie, when we started the song and your drummer went off, I'm like, ooh, that's that aggression that you talked about from early. Even in the bass solo, that was redefined, where we're gonna hit you hard right from the get.
Exactly.
You have quite the footboard in this video. Do you run a rack on the road just like that?
No, I was thinking about that because I haven't watched this video in a long time now, and I was thinking about how much my rig has changed. That guitar tone is a deluxe reverb reissue that I no longer have. I had come by that timeline in a funny way, and I sold it right after that too. It was just more than I'd never had one. And you see them on so many boards, and it was fun to work with and stuff. But I'm more of like a DL4, set to one setting, and that's kind of like the delay I used. Yeah, no, it's completely different. So that tone was that, and then also, for our studio stuff, we love the Neural DSP plugins, the
Yeah.
Archetype series. I
What
think that
ones do
one
you
was a
use?
Plini.
Oh, you use the
That
Plini too? I
that
love
was
the
this
Plini
recording
too.
has a little bit of the Plini. It's a fucking great plugin.
It's wonderful. And the defaults are great. Electric Sunrise Lead,
Oh yeah,
my main.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I struggle to pick anything else. It's hard.
I gotta thank Sebastian Cure. Man, he made that record happen for sure. There's a video somewhere of our setup in that house because thankfully the living room, that is shot in, it was a two-story ceiling, and then thankfully there was a side or a front room that was close enough for the snake that we had, and then we went to Guitar Center, bought like two monitors, and then Sebastian ran the session off of our Behringer XR digital mixer, and then just his laptop set up on top of a ping pong table.
No shit.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
hilarious.
So the isolation wasn't great in there or anything for him, but we did a lot of so we would play and listen back, play and listen back.
Did you guys? How many times did you guys play through that for the recording, or was it all in one shot? Because from what I'm seeing, camera angle wise, or was it just that you had two different people working cameras?
No, that was one continuous camera shot with just cut I think from different sections or something, but I know that original video take is the same as the take that we committed. I think we played that song maybe like 10 or 12 times that day, and mostly working out that outro section I was talking about.
Yeah.
And then we just, it's always the one that you go with is like after you do about like five more, that you thought were going to be better.
Yeah. I get that. It almost looked like it was done with like 3 or 4 cameras, and instead of it just being
Yeah.
set up, because with how it transitioned between you to the bass, shots on the drum, a different shot on the bass guitar, a different perspective shot and whatnot. I'm like, if this was all in one session, you had to have like 4 or 5 people.
Maybe there were two videographers there. And that makes sense. Maybe there was two cameras. But yeah.
Cool, man. Cool. It's nice to like pick that stuff apart.
100%.
All right. So I noticed at that 136 mark, just the tone of what was going on there. Let me pull it back up. I'm not a tone chaser, but I like for people to explain to me so that way I have a clue what the heck's going on.
Yeah.
I like to just try to run as simple as possible. Like I have a 100-watt Archon, and I have one distortion gain pedal, I have one delay and reverb, and I have one wah. That's it.
Nice.
I don't try to overcomplicate anything. So in this section, what kind of groovy effects you got going on there?
Yeah, that is if I'm remembering correctly, because I still have this on my pedal board. It's a Ventress dual reverb set to some big spring, and then I know I had a JHS color box on at that time. I no longer use it, but I do like that pedal a lot. I probably most likely had my JHS Morning Glory, which has been on my board for years. I use it real light, and then just it's one of those Vox mini walls. I took the wall off my board after those sessions. I don't know why. I go through cycles with walls because I'll end up stomping on it a little too often. but I wanted to have it for that section. I wanted to have some kind of groovy verby clicks.
No, that's understood. I'm very like less is more with the wah.
Yeah.
My favorite artist Tremonti uses it mostly for his legato stuff, and then like tidbits throughout the songs of the first 2 records he put out, but beyond that I haven't heard a lot of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I like a tasteful wah for sure.
Yeah. All right. Wow. So what year was this filmed in?
I believe
I have it written.
20. I think it was recorded in 2020 and then put out
Okay.
in 2021.
Yeah, so it was shot in the midst of COVID. That's what I had. Question line.
Yeah,
Got it.
because it ended up going on Back to Blue, which we didn't finish that recording until 2021.
Cool. So I gotta give props. I was digging that bass groove that your bassist was rocking right when we were talking about that effect, and he was just riding it. Very
Yeah.
aggressive, very beat, very like bouncing along with it. That was super dope.
Yeah,
And that's one thing I love about your music. Each instrument really stands out in a trio, and you really have to work with what you got because you don't have tons of options. But that's where
yeah.
the whole dynamic play, and then letting someone else have the spotlight shine really does it well for you three.
Well, God bless those bass players, man, especially in a trio setting.
They're doing
You
the
know,
Lord's work.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, that solo was Raymond Min, who played with us for a long time as well, and he now has a great band called the Posers. But yeah, that was half improv and half just what he was going, what he had kind of the pocket he had found. I'm fond of that solo as well.
Cool. So, the last few was talking about the ending. You mentioned that you guys were working through that ending.
Yeah.
What were you targeting? Was it just the feel? Was it just the line? Was it the variations on the line?
It was mostly the drums. For the section where I start to do, it's basically out of the guitar solo into the those octaves that descend in that little riff. So it was kind of how the drums came in hitting the halftime, and then how the way he plays that section when it repeats 4 times is a little different every way, and it kind of builds up into how we get into that final outro section. And I don't know what exactly we were chasing. That was Sebastian Cure, the producer. That was he's like, I hear something, man. And and
he's like, there, you're brewing.
Yeah. And we know Sebastian, or I'm sorry, Zach, our drummer, through Sebastian. They're long time buddies, so they can have a healthy debate about drums and parts and stuff like that. But it wasn't so much one person thinking we should do this, one person thinks we should do that. It's just that we were like, oh no, yeah, you're onto something, but we were just weren't landing there right away. So I feel like I said, like, this take of this song, we're like, yeah, no, that was it, after trying it a couple other ways.
No, that's understood. And then to end the song on a clean cut, crisp.
Yeah,
I like that. Like, this is it. This is the end. There's no fading off. There's no wondering.
Yeah, I mean,
hanging on for anything too. It builds to the dynamic of the song in itself. It's very, I'm gonna hit you, boom, done.
Yeah, I mean, none of the rest of the arrangement abides by a lot of popular songwriting rules. It's just kind of like here, there,
Yeah.
Which is like kind of the beautiful thing about an instrumental. It's like wherever it goes. And I think it's the drums that make that outro part, that sells the outro part for me. Just the fill he does right before the end, boom, just that, it's the characteristic of his drumming, and that's once again why I'm forever in love with the 3-piece.
Cool, man. Awesome. Well, I didn't have any more questions on that. Was there any more that you wanted to say about that song?
I think I'm good. Yeah, that I think I forgot about some of those parts of the story. That song was fun to talk about.
No, that's cool, man. Is there anyone that you want to go over personally? I figured I left the third up to you, and if you don't, it's no big deal. We'll stick with 2.
Let's see. All the videos get mushed together after a while. We could do Imaginary Traveler. That's what we've been opening up our shows with, and was kind of one of the songs that I felt tied us back into Say That You Love Me and other songs. Actually, let's watch Say That You Love Me.
Okay.
Because I feel like it influenced the live record. And if you want, we can stop. We can do it different this time if you're down, and stop as we go through.
Yeah, like it didn't bother.
So whatever catches your ear.
My girl got me acting like a fool. Not been thinking we got too much to lose. Every time you leave me, babe, I don't know what else to do. Say that you love me, nah nah, nah nah, nah nah. Every time you leave, nah nah.
So I'm seeing that the rest of your band members are singing along finally with this. So how recent has it been to where they all join you singing wise?
This one was done, was recorded, I think a couple months before Texas Cyclone was during the pandemic, and this is a venue in Houston was completely empty when we were recording it.
Oh yeah.
They hadn't opened up back yet. We just decided to go in there and like, man, we miss playing on a stage, and we want this song to sound live, so let's go do it at a live venue, even though we can't have people there yet. It was kind of like the beginning of like why we ended up doing an actual live record with people, with a live audience. But yeah, they were singing with me around then, and then I think in the last 6 months, really since after we recorded the live album, we just have been exploring it more, and I've gotten my drummer to sing a little bit more often.
Yeah. Voice is coming out.
Yeah, exactly.
I got you. That start, is that a transition? Well, you said you open up with that song, so you open up with an aggressive improv, and then until the drum kicks over. And then go
Well,
right into
it was all on this last month tour. We really fine-tuned our set and flipped around. This was an opener for a couple nights, and we would do a little bit different of an intro than this. We would kind of like vibe out on like a tom beat, and just get some feedback going, and then come in with the the drum build, and drop into it.
I got you. It sounds good the way that you came in with the video, like it was a transition piece, like you just ended a song and you had some lead going until it builds right into this song.
Yeah, for some reason we were just really hip on the idea of starting with a bunch of noise. Just it kind of feels like you're all right. I'm already sitting at a live show.
Gives you that full sound early when you got that feedback going, sitting in the background.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And this is some really cool shots you wouldn't get if you perform them live with people around you either.
Correct. Yeah, we were able to really take time with the lighting, and Brandon Bond and his company just nailed it.
Cool. Well, let's keep it going.
Every time you leave, say you won't love, you leave me wanting more. Say you want me while you walk out my door. Every time you leave me, babe, don't know what else to do. Say that you love me, nah nah, nah nah, nah nah. Every time you leave, nah nah, nah nah, nah nah. Every time you leave.
Just that little breakdown bit. I like that. Very,
The little
very
syncopation
staccato.
hit.
The dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It only took us about, a million times messing it up together to get it right. It's so stupid simple that, you get a little ahead of yourself.
Oh yeah, and then it's offbeat, and then it sounds like it's muddied in the water.
Yeah, and then you messed up a shuffle.
Oh yeah, or like when you have a pause in a song, like a dead silence with a purpose. I couldn't tell you the amount of times that we played, like when I played with that dad rock band, that we're supposed to have a silence, and then you hear an extra drum clap, you hear an extra chord, you hear an extra note.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh man, we've only done this like 20 times, guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this shouldn't be that bad, but oh man, I hate that feeling. But that's really cool. It does take a lot of synchronicity to get that the way that it is. That's why no matter the genre, if you can play tight and everything's in perfect rhythm, you're gonna sound great.
I definitely agree.
Never know you're so lucky till it's too late. Missed all the sights, saw highway. Every time you leave me, babe, don't know what else to do. Say that you love me. Nah, 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 nah. Every time you leave.
I like what you do with here's the solo lead line, here's here's some vocals, go back and forth, give it a little bit of unexpected.
Every time you leave me.
Cool. Awesome.
True trash can ending.
Just as much noise as possible. Pow. Done.
Yeah.
So looking back at that now, how do you feel about that?
I'm really happy with how that came out sonically, and I was thinking about, there's that part at the end of the song where it stops and it says, the "Say That You Love Me" line right before it goes into that last chorus, and you can really hear, it wasn't as much studio trickery as it sounds with the verb in the hall and the drums after that stop. Like, that's how that room sounded. We were set to record that video upstairs at this venue, White Oak Music Hall, which is a nice room. We love to play it, but it looks like a small club stage. And when we showed up there, this was in August in Texas, so it's hot, and the AC was broken upstairs. So they're like, well, y'all can use the downstairs hall, which is like, maybe like 1,500 cap at least. And so gladly we took that. And so it was a different sonic situation than we thought we'd have to work with, but it was pretty cool. And when you're working with a project, you're so close to it, and now being watching it now, I was like, you'll just appreciate how it came out,
and just how good it was when you were living it in the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when the song was fresh. 2 years later, we're still liking to play it live. So I'm glad that whole project came together.
No, that's awesome. It well produced, well done. I like it just as much. All right, for segment 3, Clay, I have questions to you from my personal students, and
all right,
we'll see how they go. My student Steven asked, what advice do you have for aspiring guitarists starting out?
Hey, Steven, I think the most important thing you can do is get out there and try and find people that are interested in what you're doing, or
Mhm.
try and find a local community of music. Like we were talking about earlier on the interview, just, open mics are a great place to start, and really have fun with it. If you mess up or you feel like you mess up anything, just do it again.
Mhm.
It's never as big a deal as it feels. It's the biggest lesson is just going out and playing.
100%, man. 100%. The more that you get to experience, the better, for sure.
Exactly.
And then he also asked, "Do you have a go-to lick?"
It's definitely a triplet of some sort.
Yeah.
You know, I think I definitely, you know, sometimes we'll just, if it's a blues that I'm stepping in on, I'll usually end up doing that double stop of the five,
Mhm.
um, up in the second box,
Yeah, I got you.
and kind of work around, that blues box.
No, understood. All right, my buddy John G asked, "What got you interested in playing guitar?" I think we covered that, but
Yes, I'll say it again though. It's
Mhm.
all along the Watchtower, the guitar solo in that song in Hendrix's version. I didn't understand that it could be a guitar. I didn't know what a slide was. Really, is what it was. Um, and just that sound blew me away. And I think there's so many inspiring tones within Hendrix's records,
Mhm.
for anybody that's into rock or psych stuff,
Understood.
the blues.
There was definitely an amalgamation of a lot going on in his playing.
That's a good way to say yes.
All right. Sometimes reading what's written is a hard task.
Okay.
um, they we went over this bit too, but what did you struggle with when you first learned guitar? Like the first thing.
I mean, timing. I wish I would have practiced to a metronome earlier and sooner.
Mm-hmm.
And because it got to a point to where I felt comfortable playing
Mm-hmm.
notes across the neck. I didn't really have theory that early on, so I didn't know why they made sense across the neck. But if I could have only played them in time, then I could have maybe written a couple things sooner, jammed well with other players earlier on.
Yeah,
So I think rhythm, is very overlooked by us eager guitarists ready to bust a solo out,
for
but it's
sure.
the bedrock.
It is hands down. You want to sound good, be perfect in your timing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to practice myself by recording songs I listen to. So like
Hmm.
I'm retracking Misery Business to practice
Hmm.
it and then fixing my tracks. Same thing, I did a Disturbed song and I previously did a Slipknot song just to get better at that in itself.
That's a great thing that everybody should do is record themselves practicing if they have any means. If you have any way to record yourself while you do whatever you're working on,
Mhm.
listening back is just it's such a great teacher.
It's honest feedback.
Yeah. I mean, you're hearing what happened.
Yeah, exactly. All right, my student Bryce asked, "How long did it take to find your style and genre?"
I think what I have found is what I enjoy the most to play started to feel like it was honest
Mm-hmm.
and not trying to emulate what I like to listen to. And the further I've gone down that trail, the less I've worried maybe about genres. And
Mm-hmm.
so, even if you consider yourself a listener or a player of a certain style of music, um, don't let that hold you back from trying to learn something that you would never play in front of other people. There's a lot of wisdom or a lot of like musical wisdom you can find in learning styles that you've never tried before, going to shows that you would never usually go to,
100%.
just keeping yourself open.
Mm.
So
Speaking
for
of
me,
shows,
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry,
I
didn't
was
mean.
gonna say I think I'd found that style when I started just saying anything can work. I can listen to anything or see any show and take something from that. And every lick you learn, every song you listen to, song you write, and people you play with, it's all putting tools into the tool bag. And you don't have to use it how they used it. You can pull it out in a way that's you.
Exactly. I went to a Bowling for Soup concert. They had
Nice.
the band. I don't know if you know them. I didn't know them. The Aquabats.
No, I've heard the name. I don't know who they are.
And to see a group of men go up on stage dressed up like they belong on Disney Channel and play like some goofy pizza time pool party songs and have all these inflatables and whatnot come out. I mean, they were tight. They played
Yeah.
Jump by Van Halen. They were just
Nice.
having a ball and a good time. But like you said, go see people that you least expect and you can take something from them. I definitely did. Their crowd work and their engagement was through the roof.
100%. Yeah, that's something that you'll run into a lot is, even if you don't like the music, you'd be like, they killed that show though.
100%. And then his second question, or our last question of the evening, is, do your songs just come to you or do you sit and think about these for a while?
Both. And even after the song's done, you're thinking about how they can grow. The part the important part of it that I think is, what matters is that if you have an idea that you chase it somehow, and don't think about it too much at first. At least that's what works for me is if I try and take an idea that is just that I either just came up with on the guitar, or I hear something in my head, and I try and go into some recording situation or band situation and just try and stick to just the idea in my head, then it's, it can get stale very quickly. Where if you just try anything you want, and then it becomes like a new excitement. It's like a new playground every time you start a new song.
It's what can you do with it? Where will this take
Yeah.
you? And then I think also kind of having the open, honest part of, here's this. I like this idea. This idea that I come up with is not going to be a 9 or a 10, nor is it going to be a 1 or a 2.
Yeah.
And it's going to live within that range of 3 to 8. And if you just take it and you polish it and you polish it and you polish it and you refine it, then it would be something that you would use versus
100%.
expecting greatness from zero.
Out of every idea that, just because it's a numbers game almost. And one other thing to that point is I think that's something I like when people take this approach, and it's when you're working with a group of musicians. If somebody has an idea, even if you don't initially like that idea, or if it's not the idea that you had, one, it's always great to drop egos at the door when you're creating with other people. But just I'm a fan of, well, try that idea right away and listen back, and it'll be so evident whether that's the way to go for it or not, rather than the situations where you can get in where people will spend half an hour discussing whether or not they should even try the idea.
Yeah.
Like theory, it's communication tools. So less talking, more playing usually is what figures the problem out.
Yeah. More worky.
Yeah, exactly.
Understood, man. Well, hey, Clay, that's all that I had for you. And thank you so much for coming on my podcast and answering some questions for us and being a good sport, breaking down your music. It's been a pleasure, my dude.
I had a great time. I enjoyed, honestly, some of the better interview questions that I've been asked in a long time. So thanks for having me on, man.
Awesome, man. So I look forward to seeing you in Columbus next time you're around. You better.
Likewise.
All right, man.
All right, brother.